Hello, my name is Zachary Black. This is my paper for the Haunted Shores 2023 conference. My paper is titled, I Am the River is Me, Understanding Human and Non-Human Solidarity Through the Debates Regarding the Whanganui River of New Zealand and Tamil Poetry. Maritime settings remain at the forefront of 21st century discussions of human and non-human freedoms, considering climate change as shaping new oceanic imaginaries. How do humans define or redefine the agency of sublime, non-human beings when they feel their own ever-expanding presence under threat? A scenario responding to shifting boundaries is the New Zealand Whanganui River, and Salmond explains the recent ontological debates over the past decade concerning where the river stands in relation to human beings. For example, the public New Zealand population misconstrues the traditional roots which instill the river with free will and disagree that the Maori tribe, quote, should claim to own fresh water, whereas the Maori tribe, though maintaining supernatural and culturally specific intentions, respect the river rather than commodify it. Quote, the two representatives of the Whanganui River are defined in this way as its human face and voice, which then leads river people to say, I am the river and the river is me. After back and forth from both sides, including the New Zealand Crown, who reiterates that no one owns the water, or any non-human being, they reconcile and grant the Whanganui River autonomy. I find their agreement relates to an unrecognized poetic form, Tamil love poetry, now translated to English as an anthology of Akan, love poems dating from the early decades of the 3rd century CE. My argument is that the Natal seacoast set of Tamil love poetry, despite the form's distance and language and time, parallels New Zealand's culminating resolution towards human and non-human solidarity, which crosses the waters. I think identifying what Tamil poetry shares with a well-known environmentally sensitive poet and era helps contextualize this form. Barbara A. Shapiro claims William Wordsworth and Romanticism poetry showcases the ability of nature to maintain her separate boundaries while the poet simultaneously experiences union with her. Martha Selby's introduction to the Tamil love poetry translation closes the distance found in Wordsworth. Their observations differ from Wordsworth, however, by treating the environment as a one-sided endeavor. Selby discourages non-human identity, insisting that the poems rely on what is out there exclusively for putting humans first. Quote, human emotion and sexuality are the objects of capture and ordering. According to Selby, the Natal set, which I focus on for this paper, conveys separation and intense anxiety for the central hero and heroine lovers. Although the characters process their feelings alongside non-human beings, shrimp, ocean waves, crabs, cranes, for example, Selby only favors human behavior. Quote, many of the poems consist of the heroine's laments as she worries about damaging gossip, anxiously awaits the return of her lover for elopement or more conventional marriage. I consider a reading outside of Selby's human prioritization. Translations, as Walter Benjamin says, sacrifice the spontaneous, primary, concrete aspects of an original source text or language. According to Cynthia Miller, non-human and human beings in Tamil love poetry combine into a seamless whole for, quote, nature is brought into relationship with people, furnishing lessons and analogies for human conduct and human aspirations. The perspective ties New Zealand's consideration that the Whanganui River is self-governing to the oceanic settings in Tamil love poetry. One reason New Zealand's Maori tribe admires the Whanganui River and the waters stems from the fact that they establish humans' homes. Quote, it is in these terms that people, land, waterways, and ancestors are literally bound together. Thus, the term Tangata Whanua, land people, the people who belong in a particular place. Love interest and the heroes in Tamil love poetry also define themselves based on their coastal homes and vice versa. One poem addresses a conflict between the townspeople and the male love interest through the lens of what they know about the place he calls home. It says, look here, friend, live long. Yesterday, the townsfolk said that I belonged To the lord of the fords where crashing waves scatter white sand, and friend, when mother heard it and said, daughter, I whispered, what cruel people. The speaker relays their emotional concerns of isolation, given what they know about the ocean-adjacent land of the lord and the hero. Knowing more about the lord overshadows the significance of the waters for the speaker and mother direct their attention to the town gossip, while the speaker brings human concerns to the forefront with the group and parental dynamics. The wave imagery symbolizes a larger conflict than the speaker's anxious relationship. A reading favoring the non-human identity in this scenario notices the incompatibility from the sand to the water. Both entities deal with their own unfavorable mismatch as they fail to integrate. The wave crashes emphasize disharmony in non-human beings. They too seek undisturbed, tolerable spaces. Focusing only on the humans disregards the non-human message regarding sharing spaces comfortably with others rather than falling apart or scattering due to differences. Another poem in the same set attests to non-humans' conscious and sensory identity. Quote, look here, friend, live long. Now that you've come, that lord of soft, lovely places where the waters lay down silt throughout the vast, fertile backwaters, my soft, expectant shoulders have regained their beauty. In a term from the previous poem, the heroine feels confident about the hero now, that the waters have room to flow where they decide to. Fertility possibly refers to the jealous implications from Selby, associating the water as where the hero spends time with other women, with women other than the heroine. There is a more positive reading where the waters find freedom, unlike the narrative trap, which sees any oceanic interaction as a human conflict. Away from the sand in the previous poem, the waters reach an overall well-being and helpful connection to the hero. Then, because the speaker finds them more respectful, based on their open-ended and oceanic home, they feel pleasure. Another noticeable difference from the waters is that the speaker feels relief over the stressful weight from the opinionated town. Now, with the free-flowing water in the background, the heroine and the hero get along with each other, even more so. The interconnected harmony between the open-ended waters and the human protagonist in Tamil poetry ties back to the New Zealand affirmation of autonomy for the waters. Rather than follow Selby's disregard, the non-human groups teach stability. Non-human beings, such as the scattering sands, influence human tendencies to contest each other, depending on how well freestanding expressions of identity reside in their homelands. In addition to homelands proclaiming non-human beings' advantages as their individualized and habitual behaviors. William Wordsworth wrote poems in this manner too, and comprehended non-human occurrences as well as human perceptions aloud. Quote, the poetic images occupy an intermediary realm between the internal world of the poet's mind and the external world of reference. Shapiro, 36. Whereas New Zealand groups and Tamil depart from this perspective, thinking non-human inhabitants execute processes beyond human comprehension. Quote, in Maori, another way of invoking the binding power of the Whanganui River is to speak about vortices, whirlpools, and eddies in which the flows and currents from different streams and springs spiral together. Maori carving, the double spiral enacts the recursive emergence of the cosmos, in which time is not unilinear. In other words, they express their own needs, which are peculiar because they are unbound from human timeframes and fixed mindsets. Selby's introduction to Tamil love poetry mentions the likelihood for the original Tamil poets relying on such abstract qualities. Quote, because of their brevity, the majority of these poems are constructed around an empty center of obliquity, quote. This means the non-human beings possess subjective intentions, as humans do, even if undefinable from a human lens. For instance, the Lily poems in the Natal highlight the free-spirited alternative realities that guide non-human oceanic beings. One poem says, his town alone is adorned by the sea, where a fish-eating crane disdains the blue lilies in the marshy reaches near the water, and nests in a fresh seaside grove. Even greater than the sea is his love for us. The speaker describes the love interest and hero this time from an adoring tone, believing they capture his attention more than the sea. The main source displaying their feelings and concerns resides in the crane's ignorance toward the lilies and selfish control over the water. Although another reading emerges when entrusting Selby's obliquity versus human selfishness. The crane's disdain transforms from a harsh connotation to generosity. On the lily side, they agree in their own non-human manner since they share the freshwater space. Since they help each other, they represent the alternative reality found in the natural environment, which escapes human control. The speaker's tone is also ironic because they praise the lilies in their non-human setting, even if they do not realize so through their greater comparison. The hero-supported behavior towards the waters and the creatures reveals an integral component of the heroine, the us group's attraction. Since the hero or lord leaves them alone and watches the lily and other actions without interrupting, they include the non-human in their appreciation. Non-human actions beyond the human capacity continue in another poem. This poem describes what happens when the lilies and cranes bend to their own whim. My lover's eyes have a beauty greater than that of the blue lilies that open at dawn, and the beautiful big fords of Corcal, ruled by the king of that town, where flocks of cranes gorge on red shrimp in the vast backwaters. The king or the hero who rules the town, but the language implies the shrimp and waters are self-sustaining. Rather than hunt them down or utilize them as a resource, their rulership grants them free rein to interact with the world on their terms. Selby's observations, which focus on humans first, perceive the shrimp or cranes as threatening referents like other women who may distract the hero from the heroine. The non-human beings represent an acceptance more complicated than the hero and heroine pair. Non-human beings such as the shrimp, cranes, and waters reflect the necessity to accept different behaviors for beneficial connections. Their personal behaviors, the gorging and following their own time frames at dawn, prove they not only help one another, but they remember their subjective desires too. All human beings or non-humans develop their own personal realities and their approaches to the external world. Non-human beings in the Natal portray what engaging in a synchronous and inclusive cooperation amidst different identities means. Instead of associating maritime autonomy as a supernatural impossibility, as the New Zealand public first saw the Whanganui River, there is a concrete message. The attractiveness that the hero and heroine share thus coincides with leaving the waters and their creatures to their own devices. Moreover, the human beings foster healthier relationships, once exchanging their comfort zones for alternate definitions of a reality and the external world, as oceanic beings do. Ontology is an increasingly complicated and necessary subject for the 21st century world. Humans embody the tempting and domineering role in their approach to the polarizing issue of climate change. Considering New Zealand settles on freedom for the Whanganui River, quote, people depend upon fresh water for their survival, not the other way around. There is reason to view Tamil poetry as favoring the non-human, unlike Selby's observations. Because without the non-human waters, humans lose a valuable resource for their well-being. New Zealand and Tamil amnesty turns an inextricably shared solidarity with non-human beings from an irrational impossibility to a practical idea. Tamil poetry exemplifies why embracing oceanic, non-human identities, as opposed to dismissing their ability to distort our terrestrial bound understanding of figures, time, and space, quote, benefits humans and non-humans alike. While the poems develop a hero and a heroine's tumultuous love, what develops positively or negatively in relation to their families, towns, and more depends on the non-human presence. Human conflicts such as gossip or unrequited love depends on the well-being of maritime settings. The Natal setting in the 4 poems in this paper are only a small sample of the 100 Natal, including the seaside. Other poems in the greater set of the whole Tamil anthology of 500 poems of the Akanuru also incorporate oceanic figures as a means of addressing human and non-human collaboration. So this slide is just my work cited, but with all the sources from the paper. And then this final slide just has my email in case anyone has any questions or would like a link to one of the sources I used for this paper or anything like that. Thank you.